la présence de mon ami, le conseiller municipal dans le comté, Craig Sauvé. Donc, avec la pause que Donald Trump a annoncée, je veux qu'on rappelle que la bataille n'est pas finie. Donc, on doit prendre ce temps pour se préparer parce qu'on ne sait pas ce qui va arriver après les 30 jours. Donc, je propose quelques mesures qu'on doit prendre comme pays pour se préparer en avance. Donc, premièrement, ce qui est clair, on doit diversifier notre relation commerciale. Le fait qu'on a un partenaire, c'est une vulnérabilité, donc on doit diversifier. Au-delà de ça, on doit fabriquer plus de choses, ce dont on a besoin dans notre pays. Ça, c'est clair aussi. On doit aussi changer notre système d'approvisionnement. On doit utiliser notre argent public au niveau fédéral pour acheter les produits fabriqués au Canada, au Québec, où les travailleurs sont bien rémunérés. Particulièrement, on doit favoriser les entreprises où les travailleurs sont syndiqués. Et finalement, on pense qu'on doit rappeler le Parlement pour mettre en œuvre un ensemble de mesures pour aider les travailleurs qui peut-être potentiellement vont être impactés par les tarifs si Donald Trump allait de l'avant avec les tarifs. Donc, on doit avoir une protection pour ces travailleurs. Les travailleurs doivent savoir qu'on est là pour les travailleurs. Donc, pour les gens qui écoutent, je veux dire que je vous encourage d'acheter les produits canadiens, les produits québécois. On doit boycotter les produits des États-Unis à ce moment. Et ça, c'est quelque chose de tellement important. Ça, c'est pourquoi j'ai maganisé et j'ai essayé de vérifier que chaque chose que j'ai acheté, c'était des produits québécois, des produits canadiens. C'est essentiel qu'on fait ça à ce moment avec le potentiel des tarifs dans le futur, dans 30 jours. C'est essentiel qu'on prenne ces mesures. So I just want to say I'm really honored to be here with Craig Sauvé, a dear friend and a counselor in the riding in the area. With the pause that Donald Trump has announced, the fight is not over. We've got to take the time with this pause, this 30-day pause, to prepare ourselves. So I'm calling on Canada to take a number of steps. We need to make sure we build more of the things that we need in our country here in our country. We got to build more here. We need to also change the rules around procurement. If we're spending money federally, we're spending public money, it should go towards Canadian companies that hire Canadian employees, and particularly those companies that have unionized employees that get well paid. That's where our public money should go. We need to call back Parliament, and we need to have a package of protections in place for workers that might be impacted. Let's have that ready to go now instead of scrambling if something happens in 30 days. And it's very clear that we need to diversify where we sell our goods. We can't rely on one partner only. It makes us too vulnerable. So we need to look at other ways to diversify where we export, where we sell. And for folks listening, I want to encourage you, and this time what you can do is to buy Canadian, to buy Quebec. When you're buying your products, check the labels. We were doing that just now, verifying that things are Canadian made or made in Quebec so that you are supporting local, you're supporting the industries in our country. We need to boycott anything that's made in the United States during this time. We need to be ready to fight back. We need to be ready to prepare ourselves and so that we can defend our country and defend what we have here. With that, I'm ready for any questions. Je suis prêt pour vos questions. Je pense que j'ai dit ça dans le passé aussi. Ce qui est clair, on ne peut pas plaire Donald Trump. On doit montrer la force. C'est la seule chose qui va fonctionner. Parce que Donald Trump est un intimidateur. Et la seule chose qui fonctionne avec les intimidateurs, c'est la force. On doit montrer qu'on est prêt de se battre contre les tarifs. On est prêt de défendre notre pays. Et on a dit qu'on doit cibler les gens, particulièrement comme Elon Musk. Donc ça, c'est pourquoi j'ai dit qu'on doit arrêter la vente des minéraux essentiels. Ça, c'est une étape, une mesure qui va cibler Elon Musk directement. Et c'est quelque chose qu'on doit faire.
Vous dites qu'on doit être fort, mais on est plus en train de faire des concessions, notamment à la frontière. Est-ce que vous pensez que dans 30 jours, il va falloir faire d'autres concessions et ce sera lesquelles à votre avis?
J'ai peur de cette approche, d'essayer de plaire Donald Trump. Ce n'est pas l'approche qui va fonctionner. L'approche qui va fonctionner, on l'a fait dans le passé, quand Donald Trump, dans le passé, a mis des tarifs sur l'aluminium, l'acier. On a mis des tarifs de représailles. Ça, c'est la mesure qui a fonctionné. On doit faire la même chose encore. On doit être fort, on doit défendre notre pays. Ce qu'elle a fait, effectivement, elle a ciblé ou elle a souligné que ce qu'elle veut faire, c'est de mettre la pression économique sur notre pays. Et elle parle de 51e État. Ça, c'est ce qu'elle veut faire. On doit défendre notre pays. Sure.
Obviously, yesterday the federal government had announced this fentanyl SAR, even though only less than 1% of fentanyl is actually in the U.S. as compared from Canada. How concerned are you that these measures will have precedent that will set future negotiations with Trump?
Let's be really clear. Donald Trump has made a bogus excuse when he talked about fentanyl. As you pointed out, that is not a real issue. The amount of fentanyl coming from Canada to the United States is negligible. The other way around, though, there are massive amounts of illegal drugs and illegal weapons, particularly firearms, that come into Canada from the United States. So that is an excuse that Donald Trump is using. What he has made very clear, he has repeated again and again, is the 51st state. He is attacking our sovereignty. He wants to put economic pressure on our country, and so we need to fight back. And so these 30 days are time for us to prepare, but we can't try to appease Donald Trump. We need to fight back and defend our country and use these 30 days to prepare that defense, to make sure we are ready to fight back and ready to defend ourselves.
Touch a bit on this before boycotting U.S. products. We were at a press conference this morning from the Quebec Union, who has announced that they are launching legal action against Amazon for closing all its warehouses here and mass layoffs. They also asked for all levels of government to forego contracts, cancel contracts with Amazon, and for people to boycott Amazon. Any response, any reaction?
I absolutely agree with the union on this point. What the workers tried to do here in Quebec was to stand up for their rights. They wanted to organize and to unionize to get better wages, which they deserve. This is one of the wealthiest companies in the world, and they don't pay their workers a decent wage. So they wanted to unionize to get fair wages and to protect themselves, safe work conditions. That is a legitimate thing. And in response, Amazon punished these workers by shutting down the factory. So at a minimum, what we need to do as a country is to send a message. You cannot get away with punishing workers this way. We should absolutely cancel all contracts. The federal government has $120 million of contracts with Amazon. They should be immediately canceled.
Sur Amazon en français.
Oui, j'ai pensé que c'est quelque chose d'assez important.
Est-ce que vous allez boycotter Amazon?
Oui, bien sûr. Dans le passé, j'étais tellement ferme, je déteste ce qu'Amazon fait. Et maintenant, c'est clair qu'on doit boycotter Amazon. Mais ce qui est clair, le syndicat a dit que tous les niveaux du gouvernement doivent annuler les contrats avec Amazon. Je suis tout à fait d'accord. Ce que Amazon a fait, ils ont essayé de punir, ils ont puni les travailleurs qui ont essayé de syndiquer, les travailleurs qui ont voulu avoir des salaires justes et des conditions de travail sécuritaires. Tous les travailleurs méritent ça. Et au lieu d'accepter les demandes des travailleurs, Amazon a puni ces travailleurs. Donc, au minimum, ce qu'on doit faire comme pays et comme tout niveau du gouvernement, c'est d'annuler les contrats avec Amazon. À ce moment, le gouvernement fédéral a des contrats de 120 millions de dollars. 120 millions de dollars. Donc, on doit annuler tous ces contrats pour montrer clairement qu'on appuie les travailleurs et on ne peut pas laisser Amazon de punir les travailleurs comme ça. So we're open to looking at better ways that we can work together as a country and way the goods can flow across different provinces. But let's be clear about what Pierre Poilievre is saying. Pierre Poilievre is basically saying that Quebec should not be able to have its own standards for safety of the environment, its own standards for workers. That is wrong. Quebec should be able to have the ability to set its standards. And so when we look at ways to make it easier for people to sell across provinces, it cannot compromise the ability for provinces to set standards. It can't compromise the protections we have in place for the environment and for workers.
Just on the border security thing, to be clear, are you saying it was a mistake to spend $1 billion on what you're calling a bogus crisis?
Well, the crisis that was raised by Donald Trump is absolutely bogus. It's evidentiary bogus. It's clear that there is no credible threat of drugs, illicit drugs flowing from Canada to the United States. The evidence shows that that is not borne out. The evidence shows that that is not a thing. We have good reason to protect our borders for our own national security. We should be protecting our borders from the illicit material that comes from the States to Canada. I'm talking about the illegal firearms and the drugs that come the other way. So protecting our border is for our own good, but it should not be in any way be seen as something that's going to appease Donald Trump when it is a made-up claim that there's any serious or significant threat to the United States coming from Canada. In fact, it is the other way around, and so we should absolutely defend our borders. In fact, the Conservatives cut 1,100 border security officers when they were in power under Harper, and Trudeau did not reverse those cuts. So at a minimum, we need to reinstate those officers to make sure our borders are protected. We need people protecting our border from what's coming in from the States. But this is not going to appease Trump because it was a made-up claim.
Do you support the concessions we made, or should we have just taken the tariffs and retaliated instead?
I think that there are no concessions with the border that will address a bogus claim by Donald Trump. But if we want to take steps on the border to strengthen our border for our own national security, that is a good thing. When it comes to Donald Trump, the only thing that's going to work is to make it clear that if Donald Trump wants to pick a fight with us, it's going to hurt him. And we need to target his allies like Elon Musk. I've said, let's shut off the flow of critical minerals. We know we are the only sustainable, real source of critical minerals, and Elon Musk needs those for his company. So let's hit Elon Musk, the billionaire buddy of Donald Trump. I guess it turns out the billionaire buddy of Pierre Poilievre as well. Let's hit him where it counts and stand up and fight for our country.
Do you think the federal government has done enough in response to the tariffs?
I think the announcement of tariffs in response, or retaliatory tariffs, was a good announcement. We need to continue to be ready to fight back. Where the federal government is missing is in those protections for workers. I hear from a lot of workers, and they're like, what's going to happen to my job? If these tariffs go forward, I could lose my job. We already saw contracts canceled in Hamilton for steel workers. So there's a lot of workers in our country right now that are, before they go to sleep at night, laying awake saying, well, what's going to happen to my job? And if my job goes, what's going to happen to my family? How am I going to pay the bills? For those families and those workers, there is no real clear plan in place. And that's why I've said the federal government's got to call Parliament back and put in place a plan, a package of supports for those workers in specific sectors that get targeted. Let's have that plan in place so those workers know they're not going to be left to the side.
How will it protect workers to buy Canadian?
Well, buying Canadian is a part of our fight back against these tariffs. Making that decision to support local industry, making that decision to support the local economy will keep us stronger. It's something we should always have been doing, but making that decision now in the face of tariffs will strengthen our local economy, will strengthen local producers, and we're hoping to send a message with our pocketbook that we're not going to buy American products, and I'm hoping that'll have an economic impact to bolster the message that we are going to fight back and defend our country. Oui, oui.
Ça crée une incertitude, même si les tarifs n'ont un 30 jours de sortie.
Exact.
Est-ce que le programme aux travailleurs devrait être mis en place dès aujourd'hui, même si les tarifs ne sont pas en place?
Exactement. Ça, c'est pourquoi je demande que le gouvernement rappelle le Parlement, parce qu'on doit avoir des soutiens en place pour les travailleurs, peu importe qui s'arrive dans le futur, parce qu'on ne sait pas si après 30 jours de cette pause, Donald Trump allait de l'avant avec les tarifs. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire pour les travailleurs à ce moment? Les tarifs vont être en place, l'impact va être là, et peut-être les travailleurs vont perdre leurs emplois. Puis, si on essaie de faire quelque chose, ça c'est trop tard. Donc, on doit mettre en place des protections de maintenant. Au cas où, si les tarifs, si Donald Trump allait de l'avant avec les tarifs, on a des appuis en place pour cibler les secteurs ciblés par les tarifs. Thanks so much. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Merci. Merci. Thanks, Craig.